KYP Price, KEYV Vernal, Key Radio Life Unlocked, Truth Unleashed.
Happy Thursday and welcome to the Key Radio Morning Show. My name's Corey Pensabene, and Heather, my co-host, the real one that runs everything, is out there hanging out, doing other stuff because we have so many guests. We needed some extra room in here. We've got Thomas running the show behind the scenes. We've got Brendan checking things out. It is a party. It's good. Thank you guys for coming in.
For sure.
Thank you for having us.
So it is, let me just introduce our guests. So we've got Malia and Eli and Kaya. And they are awesome teenagers from the church that we go to. And we just wanted to have them in and have a good conversation. For those, we didn't get to have you last time.
No.
Because you were on a trip, weren't you?
Yeah, I was in Colorado. Had super much fun.
Yes. Well, it's good to have fun, but we're selfishly glad that you're here with us today. Let me go over a few announcements to get us started. We have a ladies event, Dress for the King. This is 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., August 23rd, and that is at the Calvary, that's in conjunction with Calvary Sevier Valley at the Sevier Fairgrounds in Richfield. It's $30 a person. Go check that out. You can contact Kelly Cowles at 626-241-6096. Again, that is August 23rd. Also, starting up again in September, and I believe, Eli, your dad is getting things kicked off. Yes, at the Utah Christian Research Center up in Draper.
Cool. Yeah.
He is the opening fall speaker, and he's going to be talking about truth that transforms, why sound doctrine matters. So Go check that out. That is September 6th. So we'll be continuing to announce that. Also coming up, this is going to be in October. We're making announcements for October.
That's crazy.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Weird.
I'm just going to pretend like we're way ahead of the game and October isn't really quite that close, but that might not be true. So the Charis Pregnancy Clinic, or what we have thus far referred to as the Pregnancy Resource Center, is having their fundraising banquet on October 3rd. And let's see what the time is, 6 to 9 p.m. The special guest speaker is Dr. Mark Newman, and it is Utah's biggest pro-life celebration at the Hyatt Regency up in Salt Lake. There is more information that you can check out, prcslc.org, just to make sure we're as confused as possible. Okay. That's all I have for announcements. And as we had you guys in, one of the things that is a problem in our culture is I think that there is often a disconnect between generations. We have the older people kind of doing their thing. In fact, if I could be honest, guess what I had one of my high school students say to me yesterday? They not exaggerating. They said, "What would 86-year-olds want to live for anyway? All they do is sit around and watch TV."
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Oh.
Now, whether or not I should have done this, I don't know. But I just took my moment to sit back and just say, I said to him, "Oh, you mean like you spend all your life on your phone?"
Oh.
Shoot.
I did. And so let's just say that I roasted him and the rest of the kids knew it. But the point is, I think we do that sometimes both ways. We have younger people looking at older people like, you're past your time, you've done your thing, it's my turn now. Mm-hmm. And then other times we have older people dismissing or thinking, oh, you young people, you don't do anything right, you don't have the right attitude or right perspective. And so biblically speaking, we have a very, very different perspective. I wanted to read a couple of verses before we get started, and I asked you guys to come in, and I'm so thankful sincerely that you guys were willing to come. It's such a blessing. And for those of you who didn't hear the first one, it was December, I believe, or maybe the first week of January of this year, that Kaya and Eli were here, and we talked about some things. So you can go check that out back on our YouTube channel as well. But I wanted to read this verse starting here in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "You then, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Jesus Christ." And then notice, so this is Paul talking to Timothy, right? It says, "And the things that you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust them to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others. So I just really want to point out that there are 4 generations right here. This is Paul, who's taught Timothy, Timothy who's teaching other men, and other men who are supposed to teach other men. This is 4 generations of people where discipleship is happening, right? And one of the cool things I think about the biblical perspective is that God has it both ways. So just if you're listening, young people are a blessing in my life because I'm like, there's hope for the future, right? Sometimes as an older person, you think like, man, I didn't have enough time, or, oh, I messed it up, or, oh, I thought I handed down this legacy, but things are falling apart. And you want younger people to be able to bring the future in with a witness for Christ and that kind of thing. And so there's that. I also wanted to read, I realize it's a long intro, but I just want to set the table here. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 12 says this. And again, Paul is talking to Timothy, but this applies to you guys as well. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. And then he goes on to say, until I come, devote yourself to the public reading of Scripture. And so there is so much going on in God's word that talks about how everybody, young to old, is to point people to Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
So quickly, Kaya, tell us about yourself just so that the audience knows what's going on in your world.
So I am 18 years old. I'm going to Moody Bible Institute next week, so I'll be starting college there, and I'm going into biblical counseling. So
Okay.
that's kind of what I'm looking forward to in life right now.
Okay. Awesome. Eli?
I'm 17. I like playing baseball, and I'm just finishing off the senior year here with just homeschooling. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Malia?
I'm Malia. I'm 18. I am leaving for Frontier School of the Bible tomorrow morning. And just really excited to dive deep into my relationship with God out there.
Awesome. Awesome. So we have got some awesome stuff. And I gave you guys a few questions. I'm going to pull them up. And I think what we'll do is we'll do one at a time. And I think I said 2 or 3, right? I said 2 or 3 things that you guys wish, that was the first question, that you guys wish adults kind of knew or older generations kind of knew about teenagers or wish that they would think through. So why don't we just start with you, Kaya? Let's start with one thing that you wish, just in general, maybe not specifically, but whether it's in churches or just in our culture at large, that you wish older people understood.
So I would say it's less of like an understanding thing, but more of like an application.
Okay.
But I wish that, like, just in our society and stuff, that like the older generations would view the younger generations as somebody that's like coming into the world and like going to become where the older generation is now, if that makes sense. Like recognizing that we're not just like kids and teenagers and like looking down on us because like we're younger than they are, and they've like obviously they have more life experience and stuff, but like not looking down on us because of that experience that they have, but like recognizing that like we're coming into the world, like most of us are like becoming adults, like my generation and stuff. And so recognizing that we're becoming the next generation that's going to be like politicians and everything that's like leading. And so I wish that they just kind of like helped us more instead of just like being like, oh, you're young, and just like pushing us aside, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It does. And do you think, from your perspective, Kaya, is that something that you see in the church and in the culture at large, or do you see it in one place or the other more?
I mean, I would definitely say I see it more in the culture at large. Our church has been such a blessing in like bringing kids up and like giving us so many opportunities to serve and like lead and whatever that looks like, depending on like how God has gifted us. But I definitely know there is issues with that in churches, but I haven't experienced it personally. So I would definitely say it's more so in society.
Okay. What would you guys add to that? Do you think it's more of a societal thing? Do you think, and let's maybe ask you this, beyond just our church, right? Because we want to think about this big picture. So yes, our church, I agree with you. I think that we live in a situation where we're so blessed because our church has a good investment, I think, in our young people. But overall, do you think churches do a good job from what you can tell, or do you even have a sense of that?
I don't know. I think it could be very black or white, you know. And for I'm so blessed as well. Like Kaya said, our church is so great about including us in things and realizing that we desire mentoring, and they are quick to step to that, which I love so much. But at other churches, I don't hear very much.
Yeah, same. I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
But from what I see a lot of mentoring.
Okay. And you say you agree. What do you mean, Eli?
Just because I've been in the same church for 10 years, so I haven't been in any other church or anything, so I haven't seen it to an extent at all. I've been in the same church for 10 years, so not exactly sure, but I think I agree. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it can look different. I think the church is better at it than the culture in a lot of ways, but I do think the church could still grow in the way that we invest and disciple, right? Where, and I think there's a danger. And you know, speaking of Kaya, how you said you guys are the future, right?
Yeah.
What's interesting is that I think the responsibility first and foremost lands on the leaders, the older people, to what they're handing over to the younger generations, right? We see that in scripture. And I want to say this, that we have to be careful that in churches, we don't support the youth by putting them off in a corner and saying, hey, you do the youth thing. So that like, yeah, we're invested in the sense that there's a program for you guys, but we're not invested in the sense that we're drawing you in as a part of the church presently, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it would be good that teenagers serve more in the church. That's something I want to see more of, is teenagers have the opportunity to be on a worship team, to help in kids ministry, to help with areas inside the church, and just to serve. And teenagers can do it. So I think that's something churches could be better at, is teenagers can serve too.
Okay.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
do you guys think that those opportunities exist, but people don't communicate? Or do you think, like, what is the breakdown in terms of that not always happening?
I would say definitely a lot of it is communication, and then also just recognizing that, like I said, like people who are older maybe have more experience. Like if they're looking for somebody in the tech department, they're like, oh, this person over here has like a degree in some sort of tech, so they're obviously going to choose that person. But then there also is a lot of like communication where they just like don't make it clear to everybody that there's like a need in an area, and so then I feel like a lot less people will take the opportunity because they don't know there is one.
For sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Or even like kids our age or a little bit younger than us, they have the desires to work the sound system or be on the worship team, help with the kids, wherever it is. They have the desires, but they're just too, I don't know the right word for it, inferior or
Maybe
hesitant or distracted just to go and ask.
So you're saying the kids. The kids are
Sometimes
having
it's
a
our
hard time.
problem where we don't ask because we fear we'll be rejected, for sure.
It's true. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So it really is on both ends, right? Meaning we need the adults, the older people to be looking for opportunities to invite and bring on board.
Yeah.
But we also need younger people to be saying, hey, here I am. I
Definitely,
actually am
for
interested
sure.
in
Yeah.
helping out,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing. And I also think it brings up an interesting thing that, you know, young people might have some natural talent and things like that, but that doesn't always mean that they're ready, even if they're willing,
Definitely,
right?
yeah.
So we have to have those conversations too,
Yeah.
because there is a certain degree of, are we talking to someone who's ready already, or are we talking to someone who says, hey, I'm interested, and now we need to be more proactive about preparing them
For
to be
sure,
ready,
for sure,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
How long have you been singing on the worship team?
2 years.
Okay,
2 and
so
a
you were
half.
like 16,
Yeah.
15, 16 when you
Yeah.
started? Okay,
Yeah.
that's pretty young. That's really good. So I'm thankful for our leadership being willing to do that, but you also put in work, right? You do that. And I know you guys have all participated in worship for for Awana and things like that as well. So there are a lot of aspects of this going on. How about you, Eli? What was an observation, something that you wish the older generation knew? Because Kaya's was that, hey, we're here now and we're ready to go. What about you? What was an observation that you think?
I just think that teenagers are dealing with stuff that adults didn't when they were younger, and so teenagers are dealing with things like social media, and adults didn't have that when they were younger. And so, although adults do have social media, this is something like a teenager's going to deeply, deeply struggle with the things they view online and the social media and addictions and stuff like that. And so it's just harder for them to understand, I think, maybe.
Okay.
That's
For
one
sure.
thing. I guess.
Yeah. Go ahead. Were you going to say something, Kaya?
No, I was
about
just
that?
agreeing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there is, to your point, Eli, there is a situation where we have to be able to recognize that we got introduced to social media much later than you guys did.
Yeah.
You guys got, what do they call you guys? Screenagers?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You've never known
Yep.
life without a
Yep.
screen or without the internet.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas a lot of us, I mean, I'm in my early 40s, so it's like, for me, I was coming in just at the beginning of all this stuff. So I didn't get impacted the same exact way, like right in my formative years and right in those situations. So I think you're right, Eli, that there is a difference. Let me ask you this then, and I'll take perspective from all three of you. How are the struggles similar though? So they're different because maybe the season of life that you guys got them introduced to you, but how is the struggle the same? I mean, do you really think that adults don't have the same struggles with social medias, like or social media issues? Do you think that adults have to have the same temptations, or do you think it's totally
So
different?
here's what I think. I think adults know how to deal with it better. I think teenagers, sometimes we give it to them too early of an age to where they just can't deal with it. But adults have more maturity to discern, how much time they spend on there. So adults can discern that and say, okay, I've spent 20 minutes on here. I think it's probably good I call it done today, and have the maturity to call that. A lot of teenagers, most of them don't. So I think it's a maturity thing. I think adults are mature and can handle it, and I don't think a lot of teenagers are. Some are, but not all. So that's what I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to bounce off of that, because you guys are older, you guys can bounce back to something you already know.
That's a good
Because you
point.
were raised differently than us and didn't have these things to go to. Many people in our generation look to their phones or a screen or a console first before
That's a good point.
going outside, getting some exercise. Just
Anything.
things that
Yeah.
any basic thing that
Yeah.
everyone can do.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And then I think even just as far as communication goes, like I talk with my parents a lot about how like when they were younger, obviously like they didn't have phones or anything, and so when they wanted to like go hang out with their friends, they had to see them face to face. Where often even like if we're like hanging out with our friends, we're still just like on our phones together. And so I think we look at phones and technology as like the main way for you to communicate with other people. And so whether that's social media or texting or whatever it looks like, we look at that as like this is how we communicate with people. And so I feel like there's a lot more desperation for like if we don't have that, then we're not going to be connected to the world. Whereas the older generation spent their most if not all of their childhood like having to connect face to face if they wanted the connection. And so I feel like kind of like what Malia said, we don't really have that to fall back on because the context of our world is social media and texting and stuff is how you communicate with people.
It's good.
Right. It's hard now because we can't even have social interactions now. It's like you go on like an elevator, you're just at the store, anything. There used to be people like, oh, how are you doing? Like, and you don't even know them. But now we're just like, to hide social awkwardness, we just go on our phones, and it's like it's so dumb. Like, what happened? Like, come on. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's think about this because Eli, I think to your original comment, and we'll go a little bit deeper in some other areas because I want to hear, your experience is different, is what you said, but I think that there's more than just social media that has
Absolutely.
that has changed that as well. But let's talk a little bit about social media here for a minute. Why is it, from your guys' perspective, that social media is so compelling? What makes it such an attractive thing? Because, Malia, what you said I thought was really fascinating, that we have something to go back to. But you guys don't have that in a sense. I mean, you should, and maybe it is technically available. But, for example, I grew up with a dictionary. So I know what it's like. I have another point of reference, which I think is what you were saying. And I think that's really, really important. That helps me think through some things, Malia, because I hadn't thought about it quite in those terms, that in my mind, there still was a time in reality where I didn't have the phones. So I can go back to that. But you guys don't. But why is social media so compelling, even beyond just the fact that we were raised on it? Why is it such a distraction or such a pull for people?
I think it's two things.
Okay.
I think the first thing is it's a highlight reel of people's lives, but it's portrayed as their whole life. So when you post stuff on social media, you're posting like the highlights. You don't want to post like I'm deep in this dark depression and like I'm struggling financially or whatever it is. Like you generally don't post those things online. And so people see these highlight reels of people's lives and they're like, oh, this is how everybody else's life is and like everything is so perfect. And so like you want to see that because that's appealing to you. And then it also like makes you wish you had that, and so you like want to see it. And then on the flip side, the other thing is to get away from your own problems because like in your life, like there's things we all want to avoid, and I feel like our generation, like Eli said, when you're in an elevator and there's social awkwardness and you want to avoid that, you jump on your phone. So whatever it is that you want to avoid in life, social media is a great way to just kind of ignore real life and just look at how other people's lives are and just like see those highlight reels.
Okay, so Eli, I want to hear your thought, but I just want to comment on something, Kaya, that you brought up. One of the things that we have done very poorly is that we have, as older generations, we have, and I'm generalizing, there are exceptions, but I think we've raised our kids to be soft.
For sure.
We've
Yeah.
raised you guys to be weak as
Absolutely.
that instead of allowing you guys to deal with hard things and teach you to work through them, for example, the awkwardness, it's not like it's only awkward now.
Right.
Relationships have always had an element of awkward in
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
But we've removed difficulties, probably with good motivation, right?
Sure.
Well, we want to bless you. We don't want you to. But when you go through the depression, for example, that changes your life. You learn how to deal with things in a way that when there are no difficulties or few difficulties, right? Or even think about COVID.
Yeah.
We didn't teach people, I don't think, largely how to overcome and conquer.
Right.
The message was fear, hide, run
Yeah.
away,
Yeah.
take care of yourself only.
Yep.
And so that actually is our responsibility in a way where instead of giving you guys opportunities to face adversity and to walk you through it,
Yeah.
we tried to remove it from you altogether. And so I think that creates a sort of fragility in the whole mindset and worldview of younger people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know.
For
Does
sure.
that make any, is there
Totally.
any substance
No,
to that?
totally.
Absolutely.
And I would say that even applies to like at least my spiritual life. I feel like because of the way that our generation is with trying to run away from it, I also struggle with that, like in walking through trials or seasons of my life that God has put me in and just been praying like, God, take me out of this season instead of God, what are you teaching me in this season? And I feel like that has
Yeah.
such an application in my spiritual life as well, because our generation just tends to want to flee from anything bad.
Yeah, for sure.
Eli, you got it.
I think with the social media part, the reason teenagers are going to it is it's an identity crisis. Is where's their identity, and they're going to social media to find
Absolutely.
it, and so they have the profile picture and they want to find their identity in social media and not in God.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Okay.
a problem.
So, okay, now let's unpack that for a second, because finding my identity in something other than the Lord is not new, right?
For sure.
So, what is it about social media that makes that particularly a compelling avenue for getting my identity there? Does that question
Yeah.
make sense even?
Yeah.
It's like pride. It's like you want to be the best person ever, and you want to look amazing, and you want your looks to surpass everyone else, and you just want to be the perfect person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can find that and find affirmation on social media. So all the likes you get, all the comments, all the everything like that,
Yeah.
you're getting it all on social media. So it's affirming, but you need to find that identity in Christ, not in social media.
But I also think you don't have to put that much effort into it either. And so everything's just right there in your hand. And all you have to do is press that icon. And probably one of the first things you'll see, how to eat healthy. And,
Right.
But also be happy with
Right.
whatever you're eating or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's like you don't have to put effort into it. And someone is already, quote unquote, feeding you. What you want. And the thing is, it's what you want. And you don't have to work to change what you have been doing
It's
wrong
easy.
in your life. You
Yeah.
know?
So that's an interesting point. It actually kind of ties into what we were talking about a minute ago. The teaching you guys the skill, and not just you guys, specifically, but just in general.
For sure.
Do we teach younger people the skill of working through hard things? Because I'll be honest, to your point about I think this is true of adults too. And I just think adults, because you talked about earlier, adults are more mature. There is some element of that, but to be honest, I think some of it is adults have to pay the bills.
Definitely.
So it may not even necessarily be that they're so mature. It's just that they know if they don't do it, there's no food coming, right?
sure.
And so they have to do it in a way that maybe you guys don't. But I think that there is this interesting thing where adults can also, in the same way, without even realizing it, be getting our identity, because it is just a click of a button. And you know what? Part of the problem with the generational gap, if you want to call it that, is that it's easier for me to hand you a cell phone than it is to sit down, have a cup of coffee, and have a real life conversation.
Yeah,
it's easier for me to sort of look at your life from a distance or say, oh, you're doing your thing, all the while I'm doing my thing.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help, because relationships, I think we have to be honest with ourselves. Relationships don't just naturally happen.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
They require work and sacrifice, don't they?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Phew. Malia, what's the first thing that you would say that you wish older generations really knew or recognized?
It kind of all ties with what we've been talking about, but that we are capable, that we Some of us, whether we work for a talent or a spot, and want to grow up and want to see how to do it right, I feel like sometimes we get so rejected or just like, I don't know how to exactly word it, but we've been doing this for so many years that we don't need you right now. But it's the difference between desires, you know. They desire to keep doing what they've been doing for years, whether it brings them back to when they were young or when I started this or this is my passion. But it also takes away from time where we can grow. And like I'm young. And so, you know, so if that makes sense.
So in other words, you're saying that the adults often are so invested in what they're doing already because they love it, or maybe it's just the status quo.
Yeah.
And so they don't they don't necessarily view you guys as capable in that way. Is that what you mean?
I guess so, yeah. Capable or not completely equipped, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this then, Malia, since you bring this up. Could I rightly look at someone who is 15, 20 years younger than me and say, actually, you legitimately are not as equipped as I am? Could I do that and be accurate?
Totally.
Okay.
It depends on the person, though.
Okay.
You know?
So how would I respond then? Because I think that there are a lot of ways in which younger people have things to offer and they are more equipped than we realize.
Yeah.
But also sometimes younger people think they're more equipped than they actually are.
Yeah.
So how would you
I would say
interact with that?
for both sides, both of us having open arms to open ideas. And instead of the older generation reaching down and saying, here, I'll pull you up, we meet at the same spot and we take baby steps together to make sure we're on the right page.
Okay.
A great example is Heather, actually. I said, hey, I'm learning guitar and I want to be equipped and I want to continue learning guitar. And not only did she come down to my level and teach me the guitar, but she also threw me in an act of service to practice, you know, and not in my room to practice where I could be like, oh, that's okay, it's a mistake, I'm just in my room.
Yep.
Somewhere where I can make mistakes in front of people and learn from them, you know. And so, great example. I love that happened, which was amazing. But whether it's wherever you want to serve, you know, the older generation coming down to your level and guiding you through. Even if you are equipped, you can skip those steps. But it's them ensuring that you can take over after they go. And us ensuring that we are capable, you know.
It's good.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of a two-way street because I feel like Malia said, if we're not as equipped as we could be, or like they're desiring for somebody with more experience, then they kind of sometimes will just push aside and be like, well, we have this other person. But I feel like the important step in that case, if somebody has the desire, even if they're not equipped, being able to mentor them and being like, hey, like recognizing the desire in somebody and wanting to like grow them in that, mature them in that, and bring them to a place where they are equipped, instead of just quenching that desire and being like, no, we have somebody else to do it. And I think not only would that help more of our generation want to be in ministry, but I think it would just make us so more like willing to step out ourselves, because like Malia mentioned earlier, a lot of our generation has kind of this fear of rejection, fear of failure mentality, and so we don't want to ask because we don't want to be told no. But if we see this pattern of, hey, even if you don't have what it takes to be equipped right now, we're going to help you get to that place, and then I think a lot more teens and young adults would be willing to like step up and be like, hey, I have this desire, could you mentor me, or could you help me be equipped to do this? And I think that two-way street would just, I don't know, benefit everybody.
Yeah, it's good. Eli?
It's also biblical too, isn't it? You're going to have to bring up the reference, but it's older men teach younger men, and an older woman teach younger woman. That's biblical.
I know
That's what
Proverbs
you need to
31
do.
talks about
Okay,
that for sure.
Yep, in Titus
Older
chapter
women,
2, right?
Yes.
When Paul is giving Timothy instructions, he's saying, hey, older men, disciple the younger men.
Right.
Older women, disciple the younger women, right?
Yeah.
Now, let me just pause here for a minute, because this is maybe something that we don't always think through, right? We can identify problems and say, okay, older generation has their issues, younger generation has their issues, right? But maybe there are some cultural things that we don't recognize. So, for example, in the past, because I think this actually starts in the home.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah, for
I
sure.
know all three of your families, so I know that it's not just our local church. It also is something that I see modeled in your, we all know
Yeah.
we've got our own weaknesses. Nobody's perfect, right? But your families, I know the three of your families, and that your parents are engaged not only in serving in the church themselves in a very different way, but also with you guys, right?
Yeah.
So that makes a difference. But culturally speaking, for most of human history, parents and children worked side by side just to provide for the family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those intergenerational realities and relationships developed naturally because that's what it took to survive.
Yeah.
Now, dad goes off for hours at a time. Mom's job is often outside of the home. Things
Kids are
like
at
that.
school. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The kids are at school. So we've got this whole life in school, this whole life in dad's work, this whole life in mom's work, and then we try to come back together and put it all at the end of the day and make it all work. Right? And then church life is separate for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I think maybe just giving everybody some grace too on all sides and recognizing that what for most of human history came naturally because of just the way dynamics were, we don't have that right now. Which means me walking over to Kaya and having a relationship, or Heather teaching Malia, or sitting down and talking to Eli, at Subway. We didn't get to really have a long conversation, but a few weeks ago when you and Ryan and the guys were there, right?
Yep.
That takes effort in a way that you didn't have to make particular effort in a lot of human history because we just did it together. Everybody was in the fields. Everybody at Harvest needed to be together. Everybody, we didn't have the phones isolating us even further. So I think and again, you guys can speak to this, but just recognizing too that we're facing some unique challenges. And when we were handed these computers, we had no idea what we were getting into.
Yeah, for sure.
We
sure.
had no
Yep,
clue about what was coming down the road ahead of time.
Yeah.
And I think we have to give ourselves some grace for the learning curve in this whole
for sure.
process.
Yeah.
Okay. You look like you got something you're thinking of.
Yeah, I just have a question. If you were to change our society now, would you want it to be the way it used, personally for you, Corey, would you want it to be the old-fashioned, we could say, way of doing life?
Yes, in a lot of ways, I really would.
Okay.
Now, what I don't mean by that is we have to be careful, right? We could do the all or nothing kind of thing. So if I had to choose between the way things were in terms of technology and things like that, I would go back
Okay.
because I
Yeah,
think
for
we're
sure.
really distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What that doesn't mean is A, that there aren't good things about technology that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
And B, it doesn't mean that there aren't. So I don't think that God calls us ever to be stagnant and live in the good old days, right?
Yeah.
There's supposed to be growth. Things do change, and I think that's by God's design. But if you're asking Eli, do I think the benefits of some of the technological growth outweigh the costs? No, I don't. I think the costs have outweighed the benefits ultimately.
Yeah.
So areas of growth, things that I can learn. I mean, think about, for example, the technology where we have machines that can help perform surgeries, that just the steadiness of hand that we may not have, things like that. I would not want to go back from that.
For sure.
But in terms of the cost relationally and distraction from technology, I don't think we need to get rid of technology altogether. But would I go back so that we could, Malia, I thought what you said was really just profound. I've been chewing on that even just since you've said it. To give you guys a frame of reference so that people growing up had a frame of reference outside of all the advanced technologies, right, or progress. I think that there's a price for progress that most people don't talk about.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So
I think the excitement just comes so much with oh, this new thing, and I feel like that happens a lot with phones, and then by the time that the excitement wears off, we've been sucked in already and we don't even realize it. And so as technology has moved forward, you saw that even 100 years ago when the first telephones and stuff were coming out, and everybody wanted to just use them, and they're like, oh, this is so cool. And now we can't get away from it. Now life ends if you don't have your cell phone on you. But I think there is so much excitement in that progress and these new things, and then by the time the excitement's over, then we're just sucked in.
Yeah.
And something I've been thinking about is humans, our nature is to mimic those who came before us, right? And so when we're talking about serving in the church and reaching out our hands and pouring into people younger than us and seeking guidance from people older than us, our younger siblings and their kids or all of the people underneath us are watching us as well. And so it's back to the serving specifically.
right? That's good.
if we're not asking, then they won't know how to ask either. And this is something that we want to break. You know, we want the next generation also to be able to change in their own generational problems and not ours, you know.
Yeah, it's a good point, Malia, because I think one of the things that you guys, there's no way for you to understand, and it doesn't change the responsibility of the adults, but again, there's no way for you guys to really understand what it's like to have to work a full-time job, be faithful in your marriage, raise kids, serve at church. Oh, and by the way, I'm still supposed to have time to invest in the younger generation personally.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I know that you guys see that conceptually, right? But I think to your point, Malia, I'm really agreeing with you, but it's a difficult thing because it means, let's be honest, like I want you guys to, let's think about this practically for a minute, okay? Because let's say that I have 25 minutes of free time, let's just say on a day.
Yeah.
What is the most easy thing for me to do with that 25 minutes?
It's right here.
Yep.
But if it's a choice, ultimately, to your point, of either 25 minutes here or 25 minutes sitting down and talking with you guys or my kids or a neighbor, that's going to be a much harder choice.
Yeah.
And I think we have to wrestle through what are we willing to sacrifice in order to build what you're talking about? Because I don't get to have my cake and eat it too, to a degree, right? I can't spend every waking moment or spare moment, even as an adult, on my phone, but then also expect to have the mental and emotional energy as well as the time to do what you're talking about, Malia. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's something as simple as us just like deciding to be on our phones or having devos, you know. And I think especially in our generation, devos aren't common anymore. I will confidently say that.
Okay,
you know?
so explain that. What do you mean by devos?
Time by yourself, the Bible, prayer, and you and God. You don't see it very often, and when you do see it, that person's probably not doing it every day either. You know, because there's so many distractions, and it's just like everywhere, you know. And so,
Even in churches, you think that's true?
Yeah.
yeah, I think so.
Okay, so even kids who are actively in church, you're saying most of them probably don't have their daily time with the Lord.
Yeah, or very broken daily time.
Okay.
You know.
Would you guys agree?
Yeah, two things would be, number one, I agree. I've talked to people inside of youth group and it's not a regular, unfortunately, not a regular thing to just be in the word and prayer every day.
Yeah.
The second thing would be the people who do a lot of the times are doing it sometimes for a attention type of thing where social media, going back to social media, they'll catch everything. There's something that bothers me. They'll catch everything on social media, what they're doing. Look at my coffee and my Bible. It's not bad, but sometimes it's like the heart is not in the right place at all.
Yeah.
You're just catching it for attention and
Yeah.
just like put it on social media and not a huge fan. Because Matthew 6:1, it says, what does it say? It's, do you want to pull it up real quick, Corey? Oh, yeah, I got it.
You got this, bro.
Yeah.
I believe in you.
Here. Matthew. So here it is. Matthew 6, 1. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven.
Yeah.
So when you're practicing your righteousness, in other words, being in the Word of God and praying, but you're doing it in front of others, maybe it's not like right in front of them, you're catching on social media, but the concept remains the same. And I think Matthew 6:1 makes it clear. So.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's really good, Malia. Did you have something connected to that? You look like you were, or was it something else?
Well, I completely agree with Eli, but I think I just liked what he said. It's about the heart,
It
you
is,
know?
yeah.
And the heart is connected to your relationship with God. And
Absolutely.
if you're not in the Word, strictly in the Word, just you and God, your heart's going to be not all the way there too. And I think it's a sense of control too for us. You know, we want to.
That's true.
We want to be in control so much, and I think this has been a theme this summer for sure. Me and Kaya going to college and us wanting to do everything in our power to be comfortable with where we're going and stuff. But following the Lord isn't supposed to be comfortable. So.
Okay, so I'm just going to pause, turn the mirror back on myself So I've been walking with the Lord for over 30 years, and that problem with wanting control is just as present today as it is in your life. You know, you're thinking about college and you want to know the next step and you want to be able to get your career in place and figure those things out. And, you know, who am I going to marry? And you want so much control. But, you know, I've been walking with the Lord. My wife and I have 7 kids, all this stuff. Guess what? I've still been dealing with that in a totally different way.
Yeah.
Lord, what happens when it doesn't go my way? What happens when I thought it was going to look like this, but instead it looks like that? What happens when I get to a situation where I actually know I don't have control? Can I let that go, or do I find other ways to find control? And I think connecting back into the online thing, we feel like we have more control.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I feel like I have a degree of power and influence and control in an online world, in a digital world, that I don't have in real life.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I think it's the way we hide and try to take that control back from the Lord and keep it for ourselves.
For sure.
Is there any, does that make sense?
Yeah.
That makes total sense. Totally. Yeah.
Same thing with like gaming too. Like guys are so addicted to gaming these days. Like
Okay.
they've got all the different games and stuff. And it's the same thing with social media. They have control when they're playing video games to win and get all that adrenaline and everything. So it's the same thing with social media and gaming. Gaming's, I would say, just ties into that.
Yeah.
Too, so.
And to that point, I would also say there's so much like affirmation in social media. Like take this to like say social media was like how our life was. You like post one picture like, hey, I'm doing this, and you get like 100 and something likes on your post or whatever. Imagine if you did that thing in real life and 100 people came up and told you you're doing so great. That's so unrealistic.
that would not be
But it's
healthy at all.
crazy because, like, I mean, in real life, we're flattered if, like, one person gives us a compliment, but then online you get, like, 100 just, like, clicks of a button and you're like, oh, 100 people are, like, affirming me, whatever I do. But so it just makes you, like, feel so much better, I feel like, than in real life. And so it's to that point of, like, you can control, like, you're getting so much more affirmation online. So if I post this online, so many more people are, like, going to be supporting me than if I, like, did this in real life. Maybe one person will, like, tell me I'm doing great. And I feel like that just encourages you so much more to do those things.
Yeah. And a problem I see in that is where did my mind go? Oh my gosh. Is that all of a sudden takes control over you instead of you having control over it.
Yeah.
And so
That's good.
this device of metal that you hold in your phone or in your hand, oh my gosh, starts calling you, quote unquote, calling you, you know, and controlling your reaction to it. So back to the console and Xbox, Fortnite, whatever it might be.
Fill in the blank.
If you don't win, what's your reaction to that? Do you still have control over the game? Or if you get 5 likes on your post, do you have control over those likes, or is it now controlling your emotions and the way you react? So
Yeah. And I think that goes back to just like the older generation maybe not teaching us as much how to deal with that, because then we rely on like the affirmation, because like if something doesn't go our way, then we just like absolutely freak out. And I think that's something that our generation also needs to work on, because obviously there's responsibility in the older generation like teaching us, but then I feel like that's also something that we need to take personal responsibility for and grow in ourselves, because I feel like that's the other issue that our generation has is like, oh, our parents this, our parents that, like they don't understand us, like all these things. And there's definitely differences. We've been talking about that this whole time, but I think we also need to take personal responsibility and recognize that because our generation is different than the older ones, we also need to recognize those differences and grow ourselves instead of just like being stagnant and blaming the older generation for our problems.
for sure.
Yeah, and the truth is, we're maybe not so different as we think we are.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I think you can control perception, and we are told that we're so different, but we're really not all that different.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, let's be honest. When my kids, this is like in my own personal life, when I'm exhausted at the end of the day, it takes way more energy and mental and emotional effort and time to actually be invested and engaged with my kids than it does just to be like, here, watch the movie.
Yeah.
Here's the screen, right? And so if I can hand them a screen, if I can hand them a phone, then it means I can check out and I could do what I want.
For sure.
Which is actually the same issue that the teenagers having with being on here to begin with. So it's really not all that different. And I think we, again, we don't need to be legalistic in some weird way. No. But the truth is, to your point, Kaya, we all have to take personal responsibility. And I think that we've taught ourselves, and it's not new, it's in God's word, we shirk personal responsibility. What does Adam do? It was the woman you gave me, Lord. I mean, we're going back to the beginning here where God's looking at me. I have to do this with my kids regularly. I'll call them out on something and they're like, but, and they point to their brother or sister. And it's like, no, you take responsibility. So Kaya, I appreciate that. And I think spiritually, there's application here too.
For sure.
If we are taught that gratification is instant in every other area of life, and then we come to God and we're like, well, God should immediately and instantly satisfy everything I want, there's a very difficult disconnect, I think, that we have to overcome. Maybe you guys could comment a little bit on that. How do we process through so much of life is on demand and what I want in this moment? You talked about the like all the likes that come quickly or the video game kills or whatever, right? There's a dopamine hit because you accomplish something. Sure. But then I go to read my Bible and I'm like, well, where's the hit, man? Like, come on. So how do we navigate those waters? How do we choose, Malia, like what you were talking about, to be in God's word, even though it's not as exciting in the same way as some of these other things that we experience?
Maybe schedule it. Find a time in the day where it works best for you. As long as you're in it daily, I would say even, then that's what's important. So like if you have a busy morning, you like to wake up early and you like to get that workout in and then go to work, okay, find a time in the evening to do it then. Yeah. But if you have time between when you work and when you wake up, read your Bible then. Or in the middle of the day, when you have a break at work, while you're eating or whatever, be in the Word. Good. Find a time, schedule it, make it work in your day. You can schedule it for yourself. So
I would say a lot of us in our generation rely on motivation and not discipline, which are two very different things. Because motivation is temporary, like instant gratification, and everything is given to us. Motivation is temporary. Discipline will last. And so it's a brain-altering chemistry thing where you have to want to change, not just want to rely on the motivation, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so then, Kaya, I'll let you speak, and then I'll ask you as a question.
Well, so we talked about that at a youth retreat we went to in February, which was super beneficial in my life. But I would say, like Malia said, our generation relies so much on that instant gratification, and that doesn't just it's not just a thing on social media. Obviously that's a big part of it. You get that, but just in life, our generation looks at the temporary because you want that instant dopamine hit. You want that instant gratification, and you don't look at future consequences of whatever your actions are in the moment. Totally, you just want this thing now, and it doesn't matter how that affects other people. We talked about that at church last week.
Yes.
Your actions affect other people, not just yourself, and they also have effect on your future, not just the here and now. And our generation doesn't seem to care about that much. They're like, I want this now. It doesn't matter what happens later. And that just creates problems for our own futures, whether that's with spending money and you just want to spend money because you want to buy things now. That's it's I have my shopping therapy or whatever it is. But then all of those things, whatever it is, it affects your future. And I feel like our generation doesn't really look at that. And so since we're looking for that instant gratification, if we continue the way that we're going, it will mess up our future so much because we aren't preparing for it. We just care about the here and now.
Yeah.
It goes back to, do we really surrender to the Lord or not?
Absolutely.
For real, do we actually surrender? Because Malia, what you said, I really think is profound. Do you really want to change?
Yep.
Yeah.
And if we're honest with ourselves, and this is true of adults and younger people and everywhere in between, often I don't want to change. I just want the benefits of the change, right? I don't really want a marriage. I just want to not be lonely, or I want to, feel physically satisfied, or I want the idea of the white picket fence with kids, and
the American dream.
Right? Yeah. It's kind of you'll hear people when it comes to snow. Snow is beautiful on the mountains at a distance, but I don't really want to actually deal with it.
Yeah.
I understand that. But the truth is, we treat our relationships that way. I think parents sometimes treat our kids that way, right? Yeah. What is the message that our kids are getting, for example, when we say that abortion is okay? What we're basically, without ever saying this, what we're basically communicating, even to our kids that are alive, is that children are only good for me when they're convenient for me.
Right.
Your life
Yeah.
is only valuable in so much as you contribute something to whatever situation or circumstance you find yourself in. And so these are all subliminal messages that we don't
Oh,
even
for sure.
realize we're
Yeah.
saying, you know?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So we have about 5 or 6 minutes, maybe hearing from you guys. What do you want people in your, we'll call it generation, but really I think, to be honest, I think we're more unified as a generation. I think this whole Gen X, Gen Z, whatever, it's there and I understand why. But to be truthful, I think the people who are, like 15 to like 70, I think we really have more in common than we even realize.
Yeah.
We're experiencing, we all experienced COVID. There's things that okay. But what do you guys want in your generation people to know? Like we talked about a lot. What do you wish the older people knew? What about people your age? What do you want them to be thinking about?
That you're valuable in the eyes of God, that you're made in the image of God. So many, like we talked about social media and finding our identity in something that's not God. That's what our generation is doing now. Complete access to social media and everything. And so they're finding their identity in something that is not God. And they don't realize that they're an image bearer of God. They're made in the image of God and they're valuable and beautiful in the eyes of the Lord. So
That's so good.
I'd say.
What else would you guys say?
I would, I'm trying to think of how to word this. I would say recognize the motivation behind your actions. I think a lot of our culture, like even when they're doing quote unquote good things for other people, like our generation is like, oh, I want to go help this person. It's not because you actually want to help them, it's because it makes you feel good. And so I feel like that's something that you just need to like be mindful of. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Is it to benefit you? Because I think a lot of the times, even when you're doing good things, it's benefiting yourself. But how are you pouring into other people? Like we talked about, that's not just the older generation's responsibility. We also should be pouring into the younger generation and growing them. And so how do your actions affect other people? And then what's the motivation behind them? And then also, like Eli said, recognizing that matters because you are an image bearer of God. It's not just you're some person floating around the earth. Like that matters because God created you and he has a specific plan for your life, and what you do affects other people.
Yeah. They nailed it, but to back off of them, separate from the church, I feel like your image, where you're at and the family you're born into is not your eternal family, and so who you are isn't found in what you look like, who you hang around, how you dress, all the material things of this world. It's what your heart says, and not what your heart says, but who you are underneath and where you're going in the future, So I would say I wish so many people knew more about Jesus, and just the gospel, the love, but in the church, your worth is God's worth, and it's all for his glory. And so I think disconnecting your selfish desires and making your desires align with his desires would be something I really would love to see more in the church, so that there's lots more serving happening.
That's really good. Yeah, I appreciate that you're connecting it to serving. Let me say this. There is a very important thing going on in our culture where we have dismissed truth. So it's fascinating to me that you guys are hitting on, and I actually think it's a problem in our culture, that one of the things that we have to do is we have to say, hey, you're created in God's image. You are loved. You are valuable. The reason I think that's a problem is that it should be ingrained from the time we're young. We should know that. But when you remove God from the picture, particularly the God of the Bible, as the one who created you, as the one who sustains you, as the fact that there is actual truth and that it's knowable and that it's not relative, it's absolute. This becomes a problem, what you're talking about. Because everything is like here, there, and there's no fixed point of reference. And so even in our church kids, when our worldview is that God is sort of optional, or maybe he's true, or that works for you, but not for me, then I think it feeds into what we're talking about. And Malia, to your point, how can I be so invested in God if I don't even believe he's actually real? He's just sort of what religious people think about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So any closing thoughts? We have about 30 seconds.
I mean, I would just say, like, when you pull God out, it also, like, I feel like it just, like, wow, what's the word? It destroys what love really is, and I think that our culture takes happiness and love and puts it, like, interchangeably, and it's like, well, I just want you to be happy, but God doesn't call us to be happy. He calls us to, like, grow in holiness and, like, grow to be more like him, and that doesn't always mean being happy. And I think that's super important to also recognize that, like, loving somebody isn't, like, always wanting them to be quote unquote happy, because if you give a kid everything they want to be happy, they might want a lighter, but they'll probably burn themselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
That's a good example.
just recognizing also that.
That's really, really good. Well, our time is gone. You guys are awesome. I'm excited for everything that God already is doing in your lives, but also what's coming forward. Thank you guys for making the time. For those of you listening, get out there and make sure you're engaging with someone other than just your age. God loves you. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.